Sharolyn, it is so nice to have you. I did a little introduction there for you a minute ago. Her work with the National Park Service has been researching the effects of light on wildlife, assisting parks throughout the country with management of sounds and lighting resources, and collaborating with academic and government researchers on light pollution related projects. Sharolyn has worked with many partners and parks to better understand the impacts of different decisions in regard to sound and lighting, which affects our natural capital of the parks. I will hand it over to Sharolyn. Welcome. We're glad to have you. You take it away.
Thank you. Thank you all for attending this presentation, and especially thanks to the Basin and Range Cooperative for having us share our research findings with you. And special thanks to Lisa for her introduction and for her support in making sure that the slides came up on the right screen. So what I'd like to talk about today is there was a project done, and here's all of the co-authors or collaborators that we worked with. As Lisa said, we worked with the Utah State University, of course, with the National Park Service, and now with USGS. On the call today is myself, Sharolyn Anderson, and Adam Bico, and we're both from Natural Sounds and Night Skies Division. And the paper I'd like to talk about is titled Support for Management Actions to Protect Night Sky Quality, Insights from Visitors to State and National Park Units in the United States. So this paper really started with that whole collaborative. And one of the things that we know is that parks are actually a place that still provides unique viewing of dark skies. And that many of the park visitors really, when they look up at the sky, they can get that awe experience that is now lost from most homes. You know, people used to go outside and just look and have an awe experience all the time, but the park still can provide that experience for looking up at the night skies. And most of the people on this call know that. But a lot of park visitors are surprised, and parks and park managers are concerned. A good reason to be concerned. This year, Kaibab et al., published a paper saying that in Europe and North America, our skies are becoming brighter each year. And there doesn't seem to be any slowdown in that brightness. So with all of that knowledge and knowing that parks are this unique source of awe for park visitors, Utah State, Natural Sounds and Night Skies from the NPS, and now USGS, because Emily Watkins actually was at Utah State and moved to USGS. But there's a full report on this, and the report title is Characteristics and Management Preferences and Spending Profiles of Night Sky Recreationists in Utah. And our paper really took that middle component, that management preferences, and looked at the questions that could help us answer some of that. And so, before this research, unfortunately, we didn't have a good understanding of who night sky recreationists were or how to define that, right? And then in addition, we basically ultimately looked at these 4 questions, which I'll go through individually, and wanted to have this research be applied for the managers. How do nighttime visitors actually want the night skies managed, right? Because none of that was known before we took on this project. As you know, being part of the Basin and Range Dark Sky Cooperative and the Colorado Plateau, both of which has part of Utah in it, this was an excellent location to select out and try to find out information from night sky visitors, night sky recreationists. So within Utah, there is the highest concentration of dark sky places. There are 10 state parks designated, 5 of the national parks are already certified in the area, and 5 to 6 of the national monuments are certified. Let's get rid of that. So our efforts in this study was basically focused on trying to contact people participating in nighttime related activities and select this set of IDA designated parks. So what we did was we selected locations. Those locations are Natural Bridges, National Monument, Bryce Canyon National Park, Arches, Canyonland, and Capitol Reef as our national park units. And then 4 state parks, Dead Horse Point, Goblin Valley, Fremont Indian, and Antelope Island state parks. And what in those parks, then we basically made contact or sampled from campgrounds, overlooks, and access points. And we had set 82 nights of sampling. Those sampling were at 1.5 hours before dusk and 1.5 hours after dusk. We did sampling in spring and fall. Most of you from Utah would know that it stays pretty light, pretty dark, and sampling after 10 p.m. is no-no for social scientists. And all of this took place within 2 years right after, in the middle of COVID-19. So it had its ups and downs, but we had a great response rate. And as you can see here, we had 634 complete responses. So with those responses, what we wanted to do was start with our first question. Who are the night sky recreationists, right? And in this research, we took a behavioral approach where we say if an individual participates in one of 3 different activities that depend on the quality of the night sky, then they are night sky dependent recreationists. Okay, and those activities are classified here. 1 was viewing wildlife at night. Mainly you can see the foxes or other mammals, but that could include insects. Second, we looked at folks who were into or doing or performing night sky photography. And then the third event was night sky viewing, astronomy. Here you see someone with a telescope. You don't have to have a telescope to view the night sky, but some of the respondents did. And so these are the people that we then classified as night sky recreationists. If they had one of these 3 recreations, viewing wildlife at night, night sky photography, or astronomy, what we excluded really was camping, right? So if you're in the park and you're in the park at dark and you're camping, that doesn't necessarily mean you're a night sky recreationist. It means you're in the park at night and you're a nighttime visitor. And we definitely, in our campgrounds, surveyed these people, but we separated them out into the folks using this behavioral science approach that actually said that they were viewing the night sky, they were doing some night sky photography and or observing wildlife at night. So it turns out that of the surveyed individuals, 62% were dependent on the dark skies, right? They actually were there to do some dark sky recreating. And 2% of all the respondents said that their primary activity for being at the park was night sky photography. And 5% indicated their primary activity was stargazing or astronomy. So breaking those activities, right, that all of the activities that we ask from hiking down to hunting, breaking those into 2 different groups. The night sky visitors, the ones that answered the night sky dependent, and the others. So we call those the other visitors, or just night visitors at the park at night, right? It turns out that the night sky dependent recreationists participated in a more diverse set of activities relative to other nighttime park visitors. And those are statistic, and those are hiking, scenic driving, developed camping, wildlife observation during the day, and visiting historic and cultural sites. So what we're saying is that people that are there primarily to visit, to do night sky dependent activities, also do a broader range of activities within that park. The second question was, what level of support do nighttime visitors and recreationists have for management actions to protect the night sky? And this was a positively surprising finding. So let's just dive right into the data on this one. Basically, if you go to our paper, we have a table, it's table 4 in the paper, that breaks this down to a little finer resolution. But here, what you see is there are 7 management management actions that we ask the surveyors to answer, and that was adjusting the hue of the light to be wildlife friendly, adjusting the hue of the lights to preserve human night vision, create shielding on lights to directly light only where intended, installing sensors and timers that turn lights on only when needed, reducing the number of outdoor lights in the park, restricting the number of lights visitors can use at night, and setting lights to the minimum necessary brightness. And I think just taking that time while I'm reading, you can see here that it is pretty clear that nighttime visitors overwhelmingly support all of these actions to protect the night sky. And when we separated that out to looking at the nighttime recreationists to the visitors in the park at night, it turned out that the night sky dependent recreationists had an even slightly higher levels of support, but overall, everyone is supportive of all, not everyone, the majority of park visitors at night are supportive of the management actions, which is really helpful to understand that they support changes that may affect them, but actually do more for the night sky. So the other question that was really interesting was, are nighttime visitors interested in learning more about night sky related topics, including how to improve night sky viewing? Again, this question was to help us for outreach and education about both the management actions, but also what and how do they want to learn? So we asked if they would like to receive more information on night sky viewing and astronomy, ways to improve night sky viewing, native connections to the night sky, and viewing wildlife at night. And again, it was interesting to see that there was a difference between the night sky visitors or the night sky dependent visitors and the other visitors. But what really came out in this is that ranger-led programs are the most preferred source of information about night sky viewing. And that's across all of them except for viewing wildlife at night. And you can interpret that. But it is really good to know that the ranger-led programs are preferred and utilized by most of these respondents. The last question is there a difference of support of the management actions and learning outcomes between the two different nighttime visitors? And I think I've mentioned this, that yes, there is a difference in the ways that they learn, and there's a little stronger support for the dark sky friendly management actions. However, really with over 80% of support for the nighttime management actions, that's really great, because not only are you catering to night sky dependent recreationists, but you're actually supporting most of the visitors at the park at night. And so there are two different takeaways here, and I think that's kind of important, because we did a full project, and that has some things. And the takeaways from that full report, which is currently available at NPS, is that many of the park visitors are dependent on dark skies. Night sky dependent recreationists participate in more diverse set of activities. The majority of park visitors support management actions to make parks darker, and ranger-led programs are the most preferred way to learn about night sky viewing. The takeaways directly from our paper, and I wanted to add these in because if you go to our paper, which is open source, everyone has access to it. These are our takeaways. Over half of the nighttime visitors participate in dark sky dependent recreation, right? Nighttime visitors overwhelmingly support the actions to protect the night sky quality. Dark sky dependent recreationists have the strongest support for the management actions, and the majority of nighttime visitors want to learn more about night sky topics. And that paper, again, is titled Support for Management Actions to Protect Night Sky Quality, Insight from Visitors to State and National Park Units in the US. Feel free to contact me at any time. And again, this is a very collaborative work with more papers to come. So I am going to take questions now, if that works, and stop sharing my slides.
Sharolyn, that was wonderful. I'm so glad to hear all those details. I do have a question for you. In terms of the description of light management, the management actions, was there much explanation that needed to go with that? Or was it pretty intuitive, the questions that were asked? I'm just trying to make sure that the respondents knew turning the lights down at night, you know, that's a very simple question. Were the questions pretty clear like that, you know, in the survey?
Yeah, that's a great question. We believe they were vetted. We did a, a beta test for 2 nights to make sure that everything was clear and that the questions were clear to the respondents. In fairness, our average was 10 minutes per survey. So they were pretty clear and they were pretty on the spot, we think. So yeah, they were simple and they were to the point.
Yeah, that was an overwhelming response that they were very supportive. I'm so glad. That was a certain subgroup of people that might understand those things better. So I wonder if questions would have been asked in the same way if they were not night sky, enthusiasts, if you will. If it's like, if the questions would be delivered the same.
The interesting part was that we asked all visitors at the park at night, right? Like we didn't go out and say, here are this, right? So we went and surveyed folks that were there 1.5 hours before dusk and 1.5 hours after dusk. Right. So it was in the sense limited. It was people or visitors or recreationists in the park at night, right? That's true. In that sense, it's a subsample, but it wasn't a subsample like at a star party or night sky dependent people. Like we didn't go somewhere that they were specifically looking at the stars and they might have a better idea. This is really everybody in the park at night.
Excellent. Thanks.
And I wanted to also say, if you went to the paper, and I can pop the link in here in a second. The whole survey is part of the supplemental. So if anyone here has questions about the questions that were specifically answered or were asked, it's in the paper.
Oh, thank you for that reminder. Sharolyn, and everybody on the call today, I did pop into the chat the title and the link there to this paper.
Thank you.
So you have access to that. Does anyone else have any questions? So what are your next steps with this research?
Well, we do have the full report published. So folks that are interested in some of the economic or some of the other times associated with them can go to the full report. We have this paper, and then we'll be looking at probably an economic journal to try to say that these are the expenditures of them. This is how we see the park visitors differences.
Oh, wow. That'll be really exciting to have that at our fingertips. So thank you so much for doing this work, all of you, your team of researchers, and contributing to this science. And I'm sure it'll be picked up. We'll be sharing this as far as we can. The Dark Sky Toolkit, I wanted to talk today about, this is an example of where the Colorado Plateau Dark Sky Cooperative and the Basin and Range Dark Sky Cooperative really are branching together with the toolkit. So having a list of research documents and things that can be really shared, it's everybody in the whole area would be benefit from these papers. So we'll make sure that this is very well identified in the toolkit as reference. So thank you.
No worries. Thank you. And if anyone has a question later on, just feel free to contact me, and I'd be happy to answer that.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Yeah.